Welcome to Side Notes. I'm here at the ReelWorld Film Festival with the director of the Desert Fish, Mohammad.
Yes.
Thank you so much for your time. Can you tell us a little bit about the film?
This is basically my first feature film. It's a story about a boy who have lost his mother at the sea, and he believes that the mother is still alive, and he goes on a mission, on a journey to find the mother. Basically, he travels 2,600 kilometers from kind of mid-north of Iran to south of Iran, east of Iran to basically he believes that the mother have died in the sea, and he believes if he goes and make peace with the sea will bring the mother back. So that's about the fantasy of this kid.
What were some of the conflicts that you found when you're doing the filming? You're in areas of Iran. What were some of the things you ran into?
To be honest, every day was a challenge. First of all, I'm trained in Canada, so I went down there. It was a big mistake. I went down there with a Canadian attitude in terms of filmmaking, and the way that people work there is completely different. Like I remember scheduling a shoot 4 a.m. because I love doing the sunrise and sunset in my films. It was a no-no for everybody. They start at 9, and just forcing them, I literally had to throw people out of their bed to get to my schedule and shoot. But that, and then a lot of issues with the government, a lot of issues because of the Islamic laws that women being with men, and I had women in my crew, and how we travel, why it's not kind of the way that they like it in terms of Sharia stuff, and they usually enforce it. So we had some issues related to that. And then sometimes we end up paying like under the table payment to certain people in charge to get things rolling and stuff. Not much in Tehran. When we got out of the city, we start going to the villages and stuff, we start getting into trouble. And the difficulties of the whole landscape, because it's not a place, especially the areas that we shot, there were not even proper hotel to stay, no like portable toilets to use for the shoot. Even equipment for the shoot every single thing was a challenge. Anything that would break, like if a lamp dies, you have to fly it from Tehran. In some areas you can't fly, you have to drive it to that place. 8 hours later, or 20 hours later in some cases, you get there. So overall, there were a lot of challenges that comes from inexperience of that specific area that we're shooting regarding filmmaking business in general. And in many cases, the fact that I'm an Iranian who lived in Canada for like 20 years, and in some cases they didn't like me because they considered me as a betrayer who left the country. I had people directly tell me in my face that you didn't stay here to put up with the trouble, and you left for a happy life. Why you're back to make a movie? So just for these simple things, we had a lot of challenges, and some challenges would stop your shoot for 3-4 days.
And what is a website that people can go check out the trailer of your feature film? Maybe they want to ask you a question?
Basically, my company is called Cine 4D, like Cinema 4 Dimension, CINE4D.com. All the information is there for the film. Or on Facebook, The Desert Fish, we can search it. Or on Vimeo or YouTube, The Desert Fish, you can find the trailers for it.
And what are some final words that you want to share, maybe some people in the Iranian community here in Canada or elsewhere, to try to show their culture?
I would love whoever can watch this film come and watch it. Of course, I like to have more audience. We have the theater sold out today. That is very exciting for me, and this is my hometown, so having a sold out theater is great. But I like to have this movie shown to people a little bit more, because it's different compared to other Iranian films that we see. It's not about poverty. It's not about government trouble. It's not about. It's a very simple life story and love story, but through the eye of a kid in Iran. And you see areas and landscapes that have never been seen before in camera there. Like literally, many Iranians haven't traveled to the areas that we traveled and made this movie. So overall, I think it's a unique experience in its own way.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
I'm here with the chair of the ReelWorld Foundation, Eb. Thank you so much for your time first.
Well, thank you, Reginald.
And what I'd like to ask you is how important the ReelWorld Film Festival is to the community of Toronto.
Well, first of all, I'm going to step back for a minute, Mr. Argue, or Reginald, if I may, and I'm going to say, which community are we talking about? Real World embodies a number of them. We take films from every ethnic community that exists inside and outside Toronto. We've got the Aboriginal community. I can go through them all. If I went through Eastern European, Western European, if I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the Latin communities, if I were to say the African Canadian diaspora that's out there, we take films from all of them. And I think, in my opinion, that's what being Canadian is all about. So how important do I think that is to Canada? I think it's a reflection of Canada, and I think that's of the highest importance.
I wanted to quickly say that if you take the meaning behind the name Canada, it means Canada, which means village. So if you look at Canada from a village standpoint, we're all part of that village.
Absolutely.
And I feel that the ReelWorld Film Festival has embraced that idea.
Well, yes, first of all, yes. We at Real World believe in exactly what you just said, and we are looking for everybody out there that joins us, to those individuals that share in that mindset. And I really like the way that you put it. We are a village in Canada of different ethnicities, people that have come from everywhere. I've traveled all around the world, and I'm going to tell you something, Reginald, from my own perspective. It took me traveling to places that don't reflect that diasporic village, atmosphere to realize what being a Canadian was for me. What being valuing other people's culture and actually being legitimately interested in their stories. That's what being Canadian is all about. So at Real World, by us showing these stories from everybody that is a member of our village, we're saying, hey, we are one, we have come together, let's build this community together, the community being Real World, the community being Toronto, and that community being the country, wonderful country of Canada.
And quickly, can you guys give your address for the ReelWorld Film Festival?
And when you say the address, you're talking
Website
about...
address.
Oh, of course, absolutely. I guess I'm old school now, all right? That is realworld.ca, ReelWorld.ca.
And you have some final words that you want to share with some young filmmakers or people out there that want to embrace the idea of ReelWorld Film Festival, may want to submit their project next year?
First thing I'm going to say is don't hold back. Send those projects in. You'd be surprised what we take in. If it's a short, send that in. We have an entire shorts program. If it's a feature film, send that in. And even if it's a music video, we have a music video program just for you. So don't be shy, send them in, and tell them that Eb told you to do so.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
I'm here with the director of the feature film, Pretty Rosebud, Oscar. Thank you so much for your time first, Oscar.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate giving us the time to talk about our film.
You want to give a quick synopsis of what the film's about?
Okay, the film is about a young woman in a bad marriage, and she has to fight her cultural and religious and family pressures to find her happiness, to find out what she really wants to do with her life, and the mistakes she makes along the way.
And also, at the same time, you were talking earlier about the fact you're going to be on The Mentalist next week.
I'm on The Mentalist April 13th, at least in the U.S., it plays on Sundays. I'm not sure in Canada. April 13th, about the episode that deals with a man on death row, which is myself.
And can you talk a little bit about how you got involved with the film industry to begin with? I think it was 2007 you did your acting debut.
No, much before that. My acting debut was in 1993 in a Spanish soap opera that shot in Miami. And that's how I first started. Didn't like working on soaps, nothing wrong with that, but it wasn't my thing. But at that point I realized that this is what I wanted to make for a living, and I kind of fell into it. It was a class in college, an elective class in college that a girlfriend of mine at the time signed me up as a joke because I was really shy. And so she signed me up on an acting class, and I ended up being in the acting class, and the teacher told me, maybe you should take it a little bit more serious. And that's how I started. And then very soon I started working. I was a horrible actor when I first started, but I got work. So I figured if I can get work being a bad actor, then it can only get better.
I noticed in 2007, that was the reason why I brought up that
Oh,
year.
okay.
That was the series Kane that you
Kane.
were on.
With Jimmy Smits. That was a series that lasted one season, and then the writer's strike came, and it was way too long, the writer's strike, and they ended up canceling the show. But it was a show on that opened the doors for me, and put my name out there. And I played the role of Santo, which was Jimmy Smits' right-hand guy. And he was a guy that was just hard to figure out. My character was hard to figure out because you didn't know if he was good or bad. I did some bad things, but I was loyal to Jimmy Smits' character, which was the main character in the show. And I had the privilege of working with Jimmy Smits, Rita Moreno, Nestor Carbonell, Ken Howard, who's the president of the Screen Actors Guild now. Amazing Polly Walker, a British actress. Amazing cast.
You also been involved with the Hangover 3, NCIS, and there's other projects you've been involved with too. You want to talk a little bit about your acting career through. Are there any projects that may have stand out in your mind that you've been involved with?
Well, Kane is the one that I would stand out because it made all these other films possible, all these other projects possible. Before that, I had done a film called Libertad, which was the one that got me to LA and opened doors. It was about a political prisoner in Cuba. The movie was in English, although the title was in Spanish, which means freedom. And that got me some recognition and opened doors, and I got representation in LA. So it made things a little bit easier. But then, like everything, you just got to start all over. Once I was in Los Angeles and went through rough patches, but then I got Kane, and I did a Lionsgate film called Ladron Que Roba, Ladron, which was in Spanish, but it was a big hit for them, and that was the first Spanish film produced by an American studio, and I played the comedic role, which was a role that I was not known for. So that also opened doors for me. And then, yeah.
And also at the same time, you have a website that people might be able to go visit, take a look at the current film that you're showing here at the ReelWorld Film Festival, Pretty Rosebud.
Well, you can't see the film there because we're in the process of getting distribution and all that. Plus, we're screening the film in the States. If you're in LA, we're screening it in April 30th, and we're screening Utah in a week, and we're screening in Miami April 24th, and then we're playing Chicago May 6th, and then in Hawaii at the Big Island Film Festival at the end of May. So we'll be playing different. We're going to different cities in the U.S. and hopefully other places also.
Is there an email that people might, on a certain website, maybe
Well,
Facebook?
our website, prettyrosebud.com, and they can see trailers of the film, synopsis, casts, and we're also posting there different places where we're playing. Or Twitter, Rosebud Movie.
And finally, are there any words that you might want to share with people, talk about that may want to choose going into the film industry? They're young and they're just starting out.
Okay, if this is your passion, if you're doing it because it's your passion, not because you think you're going to be famous or wealthy, because the odds of that are out of your control. If this is your passion, go ahead and do it. Get a camera. Cameras are cheap now. Don't wait for somebody to give you an opportunity. People are sit at home and wait for that role and hope to get a one line in a show. That's great. That's great, but don't wait for that. Grab a camera, write your own projects, tell your story. We all have different stories. Tell your stories. Do a short. Shoot a film and put it out there. Get your work out there. Submit it to film festivals. Don't wait for the industry to give you your break. Make your own breaks.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm here with the producer from the feature film Pretty Rosebud, Rebecca. Rebecca, how did you get involved with this project?
I knew Trudy and Oscar for a while. Trudy was one of the women that was featured in my documentary that I directed in Los Angeles called I Heart Hollywood a couple of years back. And so I got to know her and her husband. And then when she was getting to make her film, she gave me a call, and that's how I got involved.
Well, we were just talking to Oscar a few minutes ago. He was sharing briefly a little bit about the film, but I want to get your perspective on what the Pretty Rosebud film.
That's a good question. Pretty Rosebud to me is a story about a woman who learns to find herself, who learns to find her own voice, and who learns to kind of do away with all the voices and all the opinions and advices from everybody around her, telling her what to do and who to be, and being true to herself. And obviously through that journey, she makes mistakes. She learns to she learns, what she can and cannot do, but ultimately she learns to find herself.
And you take a look at the movie industry right now. What are your thoughts on the fact that how the movie industry may evolve within the last couple of years itself?
Oh, there's major changes. I mean, one of the major changes is that we're moving towards streaming more than anything, and there's a lot of content being created for online and also watched online. So it's actually a topic that we talk about quite a bit, within my industry in terms of what is the next 5 years from now. It's the Netflix who are kind of being the big guys on the block and kind of making the money and really kind of producing these highly expensive and well-produced shows. So I feel like the audience is changing, and how the traditional models of TV and film are slowly adapting to these new methods.
And you have any advice on how people can actually get involved in movie projects?
Yeah, I really feel that personally, for example, for me, starting from the bottom, and I think that it's very important for this industry to meet friends and make connections, and really get your hands knee deep and into the production, to get that hands-on experience, but also to make friends for the future. I ended up working on the project because I knew Trudy and Oscar. It's about relationships and friends that you develop over time, and also getting enough experience where you, when the time is ready and you're given the opportunity, you're ready for it.
And how important you think that the ReelWorld Film Festival is to the diversity within the film industry?
I think it's really important. I'm originally from Toronto, and I've always followed ReelWorld. I think they have a huge diversity. Toronto being such a diverse and multicultural city in itself, it's just a face on the whole festival circuit of diversity and really interesting and sophisticated and talented people all getting together, where it's just not just this one theme. It's like the world. It is, real world. It's a very international kind of palette and landscape.
And do you have any final words you want to share with people? Maybe words of inspiration?
Wow. I think ultimately I always tell people is don't be afraid to dream, and always go for what you believe in and stand up for what you believe in. So ultimately part of the theme for Pretty Rosebud is don't be afraid of who you are, even if you may not be perfect, and even if you end up disappointing people. It's about it's about being able to be true to yourself, and at the end of the day, be you.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for your time.
I'm here with Evert Houston from the short film We Each Have Our Armies. Can you give us a quick synopsis of what the short film is about?
Yeah, I would say that it's a conflict between two young lovers who are trying to make their lives work, and there's a conflict between their backgrounds and their history culturally. Sometimes certain backgrounds are more traditional than others, and that's where things get challenging, and they do their best to work it out.
Wasn't one of the characters Caucasian and the other you were telling me was from Southeast Asia?
That's correct, yes.
So the conflict you had was just the culture from the standpoint of North America from the Southeast Asian culture?
Well, it's a very contemporary story in the sense that it's the setting is here in Toronto, and I think it's something that a lot of people can identify with, which is two people falling in love, and no matter the difference in their background, they want to be able to make it work. And those are some of the challenges that people face every day here in Toronto.
So it's like a modern day Romeo and Juliet film, you could say.
To a certain extent, yeah.
How important do you think that the ReelWorld Film Festival is to allowing projects that you're on and other projects to have the platform to be seen?
It's essential. I mean, this is the second film that I've had at ReelWorld, and the very first film that I wrote and produced premiered here 2 years ago, and that really was a catalyst to wanting to continue to create work And so I'm so thankful to feel as though I have a home here at ReelWorld. It's progressive work. It's cutting edge. It's incredibly diverse. So I would say it's one of the most important festivals in Toronto.
And do you have a website that people can go take a look at, see some samples of your work, maybe contact you? You know, some young people that want to start out in film, they have some questions for you?
Yeah, I'd say the best spot to find any additional information on me is right on IMDb, just to look up my name. As well, I'm the executive director of the Blue Flame Collective, which is a collective that builds other independent work here in Toronto.
And how have you seen the film industry evolve, let's say within the last 2 to 3 years?
I think there's been a real push on the independent scene, and it's great. A lot of people are now taking it upon themselves to create their own work, and I think the scene here has become abundant. Toronto is one of the meccas now in the world for television and film production, so it's inspiring and encouraging.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you.